always helps to turn on the mixer before you go live. Thank you very much to Forrest Little. You should be able to hear the audio now. Hello, Jet Pet, Forrest Little, and Meandering Mystic. So, yeah, I'm gonna go first. I guess I'm gonna start before I kind of do some dialogue. One of the reasons I'm doing this tonight is Weber Speakers is having a hemp cone sale. And so before I have a page so we can look at that, and this weekend is 10% off their normal prices. And so I thought I would show some of what, show their sale, and show also kind of what they're not showing, because these are dedicated hemp cones. They do have a few speakers, and I have 2 of them that they offer in their regular cone, but the hemp cone is an option. And behind me, I'll get out of the way, and I'll kind of turn on my lifetime camera so I can even see my my little amp that you can only see a part of, but you can certainly see the dial board on it. That's a Super Champ X2, and that has a 10-inch American voiced hemp cone Weber speaker with a 1.5-inch coil. And that's one of the things I'm going to do. I'm going to go a little technical tonight. I'll move my telly out of the way, and then I'm not sure. Oh, I know, it's my mic that's kind of blocking it. So there we go. As you can see, there's like that W on the other cabinet below the wooden one with the circle on it, and that circle also has an 8-inch Weber speaker, but that's not a hemp cone in there. That's a paper cone. But the aqua cabinet, or kind of light blue or green blue, they call it Seafoam, with the W on it, and that W stands for Weber. And that's got a 12-inch speaker, and it's actually I consider it one of their best speakers. I'll kind of come back on camera. That speaker, Celestion makes there's a Celestion Blue, which is kind of like a gold standard, and that one also comes in both ferrous and alnico, and I'll kind of speak a little bit about the different kinds of magnets. But Weber makes their own version of it, and it's available in a hemp cone. So I got the alnico hemp cone, and it is my absolute favorite speaker. Even though it's a 12-inch, and the one inside my little amp behind me is a 10-inch, and usually 10 inches will have a very well-defined higher end. But that's the difference between American speaker or vintage speaker voicing and English speaker. English speakers are known for their chiminess and bell-like tone, and that's why Celestion calls their top of the line blue speaker, they call that their blue bell because of the chime. Weber calls theirs the blue dog, and then they have a 10-inch version called the blue pup. Unfortunately, CJ, I'm waiting for the blue pup to have a hemp cone. I want a blue pup bad. And then with the different speakers, there's also different weights of magnets, and there are 3 basic weights and magnets that Weber offers, and each one gives a different tone. And that's so. Let me kind of. I'm not sure. Oh, I see what's going on. I'm gonna put my. I see what I did here. Okay, so that's really okay. So we should. So anyway, I'm going to put the hemp speakers on, go into the live chat, and make sure everything hasn't gone crazy here. Oh, that's right. If I go into the live chat, everybody. I know what I got to do. I have to stay on camera. And go in there. Okay. Oh, thank you. Welcome, Enjoy Being, and hello, Raksha Moose and Pyramid 7. Let's see. So I was going to show you the hemp cone speakers. I'm not sure why I lost my way here. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to switch over on to the other thing here. And so, anyway, Hemp Cone sale this weekend from July 13th to the 15th. Take 10% off Hemp Cone speakers with coupon code HEMP. And you would click here. I'm going to show the speakers and explain a little bit about them. Then I'm going to really kind of get into it. This is a kind of a speaker gear Mystic Muse. And then towards the end, I'll kind of speak about what Mystic Muse is about, how often I want to do it, and how we would like to do it. So, a quick thing on Weber, how Weber kind of codes their speakers. The very first number is the diameter of the speaker. So you can see here 10, that's a 10-inch speaker. That's an 8-inch, an 8-inch, a 12-inch, a 12-inch, a 10-inch, a 10-inch, a 12-inch. 12, a 10-inch. In this case, they call it their Amsterdam, so that then it's called the Amsterdam 10, Amsterdam 10, the Amsterdam 12, Amsterdam 12, and then this is a 10-inch, and this is an 8-inch speaker. So while we have this, I'll just break it down. So we now know that, with the case of named speakers like this, the very first number, the 10, will tell you the diameter of the speaker, whether it's a 10-inch or an 8-inch. The second, there's a letter after each number. And in the case of regular ceramic magnets or ferrous magnets, there's an F. Here's a case in point. I'm pointing here to 12A. Okay, so that's a 12-inch speaker, and it's an Alnico magnet. And you can even, when you look at them, the ferrous magnets, or also known as ceramic magnets, are flat, kind of flat like this, and then the Alnicos have this big dome because of the way the magnet is shaped. So even when you're looking at them, you can see this is an Alnico, that's a ceramic, Alnico ceramic, because they're flat instead of kind of bulby. But all of that is in kind of the coding. So in this case, we have a 12. The A is for Alnico. Then there's the voice coil. So this is 1 1/4. It's a 1 1/4 inch voice coil, and it's got a hemp cone. And down here, this is a 10-inch speaker with a ferrous magnet. It's got a 1 1/2 inch voice coil with a hemp cone. This is an 8-inch ferrous magnet speaker with a 1 1/4 inch voice coil and a hemp cone. Come up here just a little bit more. This is a 12-inch speaker, ceramic magnet or ferrous magnet, 1 1/2, so 1.50 is 1 1/2 inch voice coil. Okay, here is a 10. Here's a good point. Here's a 10-inch speaker, ferrous magnet, 1 1/4 voice coil, and then a hemp cone. 10-inch Alnico, 1 1/4 hemp cone. 12-inch ferrous, 1 1/4 hemp. Okay, so that's how it goes. 10 Alnico, 1.5 inch voice coil, and that. And here's an 8-inch speaker. So, and you can see there's a difference. So this is their Alnico, an 8-inch Alnico with a 1 1/4 inch voice coil. But this is an 8-inch Alnico with an 1-inch voice coil. And this is a 12-inch Alnico with a 1 1/2 inch voice coil. And they all have the H as the final letter, and that means that they're hemp cones. Weber does have some speakers. Like I said, I have 2 of them that are not H designated, but they do offer a hemp cone, and I took them up on it. And there's another speaker that I currently can't afford, which is they have an English sounding 10-inch speaker. I bought the vintage sounding. I think I ultimately want the English sounding. So I'm going to want to get it in an Alnico, and I'm going to want to get it in a hemp cone. And I think that for my Super Champ amp, and I think that's just going to be amazing. So, oh, you know something? That whole time I didn't even have this on. I'm really sorry that I didn't have that on when I was doing all that. Yes, this is the beginning of Pyramid 7. I'm just getting going. Hello, Big P99. Okay, so everything I just said and everything you just heard, I didn't realize I didn't have the window up on it. And I apologize for that. And I don't even, there we go. So, and even for some reason, I'm having some technical difficulties tonight, and I don't know why. Really don't. This usually goes, oh, where you go. There we go. Part of it is I just did from rehearsal, and when I do rehearsal and then I try to do pedestrian things, I goof up a little bit. Anyway, I'm just kind of waiting for the screen to represent what it's supposed to represent. Let me get me on camera. Have absolute. Oh, right. Oh boy. Okay, that should work. So, all that talking I was doing before, I didn't realize there were no pictorials there. This is the pictorial. This is the hemp cone sale. And since I already spoke it, now you have a visual. These bigger magnets are Alnico magnets. See how they kind of come up a little bit? They're big like that. And the ferrous magnets are flat. So as a visual, you can kind of, right now, these are 4 Alnicos, ferrous, Alnico, ferrous. I can just tell by looking at them. Alnico, ferrous, Alnico, ferrous. But in the codes, then they also give you the other clues. Like we'll get these 3 here. And you can see the A is for Alnico. So these are all Alnico. So after their speaker size, there's the A. This is a ferrous, so there's an F after the size of the speaker. And then after whether the F or the A, there's another, either a 100, a 125, or a 150. And that means 1 inch, 1 1/4 inch, and 1 1/2 inch voice coils. So now that I've showed it, I'm going to kind of explain what all that means, because it does. This is one of the things that makes Weber speakers the best speaker you can buy. Besides the fact that they're all handmade, all Weber speakers are handmade, and you order them because they're within each speaker. They usually offer at least 2 different power handlings, and this is all how to fine tune your sound. Now, I happen to like Alnico speakers. There is something very magical and a certain kind of ambiance that is generated just by having 3 different elements play with your sound. The ferrous speakers are a lot more direct. They're faithful. They do faithful reproduction of exactly the signal they get. Alnico takes a signal and it's faithful, but it has a little bit of its own. It has a little something to add. There's a certain magic to Alnico, and it even the way you play, it tends to compress when you really get up there, and the sound is more ambient. Ferrous is like in your face. You know, if you're doing like sudden stops, if you like music that it's almost like getting hit by a freight truck, you would want to use a ferrous magnet. But if you're more, if, like myself, even when I'm playing like a rocking song, I still want some ambiance there. I don't want it all just punching you in the face. So that's why I like Alnico speakers. I do have some ferrous speakers because my learning curve in speakers has all developed probably in the last year. Matter of fact, it was after I got my 10-inch vintage speaker that I realized I really should have gotten the English voice speaker because they cost the same. Let me just check in with the live chat and just rather keep my wits about me. Okay, so getting back into my camera. So basically, when it comes to changing our sound, our speaker is kind of the fine. I'm going to be using some kind of metaphorical language, but it's actually literal too. Your speaker is the last voice in the sound you produce. So the first voice is produced by your guitar. If you have any pedals before it goes into your amp, you're adding a voice to your guitar voice. Then it's going through the preamp, which has its own tonal spectrum. And then, of course, if you have a tube amp, the tubes add their own color, which is why a lot of guitar players like tube amps. So, guitar. I'm going to take the pedals out for a second because we can put them in. So the first thing is the guitar sends a signal to your amp, gets tonal control from the preamp, goes through the tubes, and then from the tubes, which power up the signal, it sends the signal to your speaker. So you kind of have, the tubes have their own kind of voice shaping also. So in each stage, from the moment you strike a note and your guitar is sending a signal, you're creating a voice or signal that's going that at each of these stages, and in the simplest one, it's guitar, amp, speaker. So the speaker has the last say. It has the last voicing of the sound that you send it. All speakers are not created the same at all. And once again, this is kind of like, I wanted to get this out because Weber is having their sale, and if I kind of get anybody who has like maybe a little bit of money, and at the end of this they go, maybe a speaker is the thing I should play with, that they could take advantage of this sale. There's 10% on the Hemp cones, but I mean, if you're saying I don't know about Hemp, look at their paper speakers. They make the finest speakers. Did I say that they're handmade and custom ordered? One of the reasons I like Hemp, well, first of all, you don't have to cut down a tree to make the cone. We need our trees. So that's one thing. So there's, the green aspect, the ecology aspect. When we spend our money, are we spending it to cut down a tree, or are we saving a tree? If it matters to you. It doesn't matter to everybody. But hemp has longer fibers. It's one of the reasons it makes better clothes than cotton. It also blocks more UV radiation. It breathes better. It resists odors better. And it holds its dyes longer. And actually the dyes take to hemp better and are even more vibrant usually than cotton. So when it comes to this longer fiber being employed in a speaker cone, what we get is a speaker that is able to sing. Paper is short fibered. Paper reproduces. Hemp reproduces, but it sings also. And especially in the treble registers, where sometimes they can get ice picky. It's really hard. I mean, you can get as trebly as you want with a hemp speaker, but because it'll sing the note rather than just stab it out, there's a difference in how those high treble notes come off your speaker. Hemp is a more musical fiber because of its long fibers. It's like I said, the fibers have enough length in them to kind of really resonate and sing along with the signals that you send them. I find that even when I'm sending like chords and playing a little bit louder, they are able, because there's so many longer fibers, they're able to kind of reproduce richer sound coming through them and keeping it faithful. They sound great on the bass notes because they can sing those as well. Hemp speakers all around, in my opinion. I mean, the ecological impact is not my opinion. That's how it is. But as far as how they sound, unless you really enjoy the kind of ice pickiness or the I don't know. There's a certain, I guess, sterility to paper, where it is a faithful reproducer. In many ways, paper and ferrous magnets are they're just faithful reproducers. They don't contribute anything, and for certain people that can be a plus. I like the contribution because I like what they contribute. I like the richer tone of the hemp speakers, and I like the slight airiness that Alnico, how Alnico takes a signal and then transduces it into sound into the speaker cone. There also are neodymium magnets, but that's not part of this conversation. For very punchy music, usually you want ferrous. I'm not really into punching people with my music, so I don't, I can use ferrous, and I have an extension cabinet. I might get ferrous magnets in it because it goes with my big Blue Dog 12-inch Alnico Hemp speaker, English voiced, and then the extension speaker has a 10 and an 8. So when I use that extension speaker with my Hot Rod Deluxe, I have a 12, a 10, and an 8. They're all sending out the same. And so that's another thing about what I've done with that cabinet is so I'm sending a signal into my amp, and there's 3 different speakers of different diameters reproducing that sound, and then they marry in the wave as they come out. So rather than just the singular voice of the 12-inch and how it will shape my sound, I also have a 10-inch Alnico paper speaker shaping the sound, and then I have an 8-inch ferrous hemp cone also feeding the sound. And I did use different combinations. When I first got the cabinet, I tried a Little Buddy hemp 10-inch cone, but it was a ferrous magnet, and it's a very unspectacular speaker. I won't get off on eminence. I mean, basically any speaker that's not a Weber just doesn't sound right to me anymore. There is just something very manufactured about it. The fact that Weber speakers are handmade, anytime something is handmade, there is something of the artist that is composing it. Their energy gets there. And the people that work at Weber love what they do. They have a lot of integrity. You could say they're even proud of what they do. They've been in the business. They've been doing handmade speakers now for 20 years. And so right now I have a really beautiful. I mean, Eminence made a 10-inch Alnico speaker that was English voice called the Red Fang, and I have that. So that it actually is. It's a very good sounding speaker, but it's not a Weber, and it's paper. So I really want to replace that. So, but the speaker for replacement, the 10-inch speaker that's an Alnico and a hemp cone, is probably like $170. If I were to replace that Alnico one with one of their ferrous ones, it would probably run me $88 if I priced it correctly. Considerable savings, but Alnico is a more expensive and rare metal because it's 3 metals in there. It's aluminum, nickel, and cobalt. Ferrous is iron. There's plenty of iron on the planet. And Weber uses 3 different Alnico, as they call plug magnets. There's an 8-ounce, an 11-ounce, and a 40-ounce. So the 8-ounce and the 11-ounce Alnico magnets sometimes are only $10 difference or a little bit more between the ferrous because they're not using so much of the metal. When they jump from an 11-ounce magnet to a 40-ounce magnet of Alnico, it increases the cost quite a bit. And the other thing is kind of they match the magnet to the voice coil. So voice coils are what produces a sound before it gets into the speaker. So there's the 1-inch, the 1.5, the 1.25 inch, and the 1.5 inch. Obviously, the 1.5 inch will give you the fullest spectrum sound, and generally what it is how much low end you want in your sound. If you want a really broad spectrum with a good rich bottom, you're going to want a 1.5 inch voice coil. If you're going to want something that doesn't need so much bottom, like a lot of guitar players would be very happy with the 1.25. And then, for something a little, especially if you have a very low watt amp, you might want to go with the 1-inch one and the 1-inch voice coil. And the 1-inch voice coil has an 8-ounce, in this case, Alnico magnet. The 1.25 has an 11-ounce Alnico magnet, and the 1.5 inches have those big monster 40-ounce Alnico magnets. So in each case, you have a magnet that is able to produce that rich sound, and then the voice coil that marries that will be able to take that extra signal without burning itself out. Because generally, when you blow a speaker, you've blown the voice coil. Very rarely do you blow the material of the speaker. It's burning out the voice coil by giving it too much signal, too much of a hot signal, and then it kind of melts because it's a relatively thin copper band. And then, of course, there's a different. Weber does the same thing with their ferrous magnets or their ceramic magnets. Please understand, ceramic and ferrous are interchangeable. I mean the same thing. So, and so that, you know, and the same thing applies with those other speakers. The smaller the voice coil and the smaller the magnet, the less power, but also the spectrum. Like with the one, like I have in that plywood box behind me where you see the circle, there's an 8-inch Alnico, one of their signature speakers. And if I recall correctly, that's got an 8-ounce magnet in it with a 1-inch voice coil. So it doesn't have a lot, like, in other words, there's not a lot of rich tone, although it reproduces. I mean, it's a beautiful speaker. And once again, towards the end, I'll mention more about how I plan to do Mystic Muse in the future. This is really about the Weber hemp cone sale, a chance to kind of also, you know, make an announcement about how I'd like to take Mystic Muse into the future. And so again, the magnet is the speaker is the last voice in your signal chain, and so what kind of speaker you put your sound out of completely changes things. One of the things I will be doing in my future Mystic Muses, there are some comparison videos on YouTube where they use the exact, in other words, they have a recording of a signal that they're sending into the speakers, and then they will, you know, they'll play one speaker and shift to another speaker and shift to another speaker, and sometimes they do up to eight speakers. And each time they switch the speaker, it's almost like a different guitar is playing, even though it's the same guitar, the exact same tone. As they shift from speaker to speaker, sometimes you'll hear, sometimes the mid ranges disappear, sometimes the mid ranges spike, sometimes it's a lot beefier. I mean, it is amazing how much the speaker that you play through affects your sound, and we're all trying to get that right tone. So Weber, besides being the best speaker that one can buy, and you're not paying a real premium, it's a little, I mean, it's probably like $10, $15 difference than you might get from a mass-produced speaker, but it's handmade, and it's also custom made. And we'll get into the customization a little bit when I go into their website, where you can usually choose at least 2 power settings. Now, in the case of like my Blue Dog 12-inch speaker, I think they have, let's see, they offer in 15, if I recall correctly, they offer it in 15, 25, 50, 75, and 100 watts. And they still use the same voice coil, but the ability to handle the power is also the ability to kind of get that speaker to feel a little stress. And that's one of the things, like CJ Sutton, from Weber, I'd ask them, when are the 8-inch Weber speakers coming out? Because I knew they were in making them. So he got back to me today, and they came out today. But they're the ones, they don't have the rib cones. They have a smooth cone, and that's the other thing. Weber makes a smooth cone that, because the ribs are not there, it breaks up easier. And there are some people who like speaker, you know, they like to get the speaker to break up. I tend to like to use, you know, like either wide open pickup, how I hit the strings, pedals, and also just like how I tweak my amp to kind of get the sound I want. I don't go for a super dirty sound, and I kind of want my speaker to be reproducing with its own voice the signal I give it. But there are certain people who might have like low power amps, especially like, you know, the smaller 5-watt amps or anything, and they put one of these what Weber calls warm and crunchy. They call early breakup warm and crunchy. So, you know, you barely turn up the volume and already you can hear the speaker breaking up a little bit, and that's a lot of people, that's the sound they really want, that speaker breakup. So that's what Weber put out with their 8-inch cones, the warm, crunchy, early breakup speakers. I want something a little more robust. I want, from my 8-inch speaker that's going in my Maggie cabinet, I don't want warm and crunchy. I want something a little more high fidelity. So I'll have to wait on that one. But it could be the perfect thing, especially if you have like one of those, you know, smaller amps with an 8-inch speaker. I mean, that's how I did. I had a Bugera Class A 5-watt amp, and I saw a Weber speaker, and the signature speakers are the only ones that they make only in one style. So occasionally you can buy them at Musician's Friend or other outlets. And that's what the signature speakers are. This is the speaker they make. They don't have any options. Every other speaker above the signature, including their vintage, they have vintage speakers. They have British voicing. I mean, we can go into the drop-down menu, but the two basic things are the vintage and the British voicing. And once again, the vintage is American sounding, and basically in many ways it's kind of like the two classic speakers of Jensen. Jensen would be kind of the vintage sounding, and then the British is really Celestion, and Celestion was the speakers that Vox was using. Jensen largely, once Fender got going, was what Fender was using, although in the early days they were using Utah speakers and other things. But Jensen is an American voice. Celestion is a British voice, although, you know, sometimes, you know, and so, but the chimey thing, Celestion, I guess, trying to hold on to some American, some of the market they might lose if they only had the chimey. They started putting out the greenbacks and other things, and the greenbacks are not so chimey. They're more martially. So there's kind of like the two different British voices are that Marshall, really chimey, bright, cheery kind of sound, and then the Marshall, less bright, really kind of punchy, a little more of the high mids than the trebles themselves. Okay, so I'm gonna take a little breathe. I can see that my chat's moving along a little bit, so I want to see how things are doing there. Hello, Mari. Huh? Hello, Evan. Good to see you. Yeah, I hope, I'm looking at you, Enjoy Being. I'm going to guess, I mean, I've never heard of terphenol D, but neodymium is a rare earth magnet, absolutely. So they probably are the same. So I said hello to Evan. Oh, Pyramid, you're going through the site? Great. Please look at some of the please, you know, look at all the different options they have. You know, some have more than others. Some only have like 2 options, like, you know, as far as power. But they have usually at least 3 options of ohmage and sometimes more. And that matters. The ohmage matters. Like I have a the Maggie cabinet I have. By the way, the Maggie cabinet is a cabinet I had built for me by Weber. Weber also has amp kits, and they make speaker cabinets. So I got the Maggie speaker cabinet, and that has it has room for 2 speakers, one 10-inch and one 8-inch. And I have to tell you, having 2 different size speakers really gives you 2 voices out of the same cabinet. And I love it. And I happen to like using that cabinet with my Hot Rod Deluxe that has a 12-inch speaker. So I'm getting a 12, a 10, and an 8. It sounds so rich. It is so incredible sounding. But when I did, the interesting thing is when I got the cabinet and I used speakers I had. So when you're putting, the other thing is ohmage. The Hot Rod Deluxe, when you have an 8 ohm speaker in it, it can handle the 8 ohm load, but it can also handle a 4 ohm load, which is why it has an extension speaker cabinet. But to get a 4 ohm load, you have to add another 8 ohm load, because the way parallel works, there's a certain equation. So when I was going to put in my extension speaker, if I had put 2 8 ohm speakers, which I didn't happen to have, I had one 8 ohm and one 4 ohm. But if I had put them into parallel, it would have dropped it well below 8. I don't want to get into all that. But anyway, I wired it up in a series, and I was able to get my my 8-inch and my 8 ohm, my 4 ohm to kind of produce a 12 ohm cabinet, which I could then use, because that would then drop my load to around, I don't know, 6, let's say 6 ohms instead of 4, very well within the power supply to handle without stressing it out. And but ideally, what I should have in my Maggie cabinet is either 2 4-ohm speakers that I wire in series so that doubles the ohmage and then makes 2 4 ohms into 8 ohms. That's how series works. You add, in series you add. When you only have 2 speakers in 8 ohms, you can say it halves, but that's not always the formula. So to create an 8 ohm cabinet that I can use as an extension cabinet so I don't overload my Hot Rod Deluxe, ideally, to match my speakers, I would either get 2 4 ohm speakers that I wire in series, making the cabinet 8 ohms, or I would get 2 16 ohm speakers and wire them in parallel, and that also creates 8 ohms. Which is ideally what I want. I'm getting away with 12 ohms because, again, it's all right to kind of give my the power supply in my Hot Rod Deluxe, let's call it a little bit of a queer ohmage, as opposed to, you know, the 8, because it's not dropping below. I really don't want to drop below 4 ohms, because then the power supply could get stressed out and create some problems in my amp. So this is, you know, if you're just buying a single speaker for a single speaker amp, then you're going to want, usually in most cases, you want an 8 ohm speaker. But if you are going to be getting 2 speakers, well, then that's why they offer the other ohmages, and depending on what you're going to do. And that's one of the things when you're ordering 2 speakers that you're going to pick 4 or 16 ohms. And the whole thing is, if this speaker were to stand alone. And now a standalone 16 ohm speaker you can use in almost every situation, because, again, you can usually go up with your load as far as ohms go. It's dropping it that actually could, because when you drop it, there's less resistance, and when you have less resistance to the power, things can overheat. When you have more resistance, it kind of the energy doesn't flow so much, and without the flow of electrons, you don't get the heat. Hope I'm not being too technical, but I really want to be a little bit geeky here. At least in concept, if not language, and I think that's the better way, is to be geeky in concept in language that is fairly easy to apprehend. Hello, Jorge. Yeah, Pyramid 7, Weber is, to me, Weber is the musician's friend, although there's already a company called that. But Weber's for musicians who really have figured out a little bit what they like, or are willing to use Weber as a way to experiment. You can't find a better speaker, and once I've used Weber, no other speaker. I mean, I actually, like, when I first put it on, it's like, oh, it sounds so flat. Other speakers really sound flat. Now, of course, most of my other speakers happen to be ferrous, which or ceramic magnets, which to me is a flat sound anyway. Alnico adds life, but the way Weber makes speakers allows even ferrous magnets to have a magic to them, and that, I feel, a big part of that being handmade. It lends a magic to the speaker itself. I'm trying to follow what Mari's going on here about letters if anybody complains. I guess there's another I guess Mari, you seem to be having a conversation that is your own. Yeah, I do have a passion for this company because there's a real difference. I mean, I love sound. I'm a musician. I love sound. Okay. I'm reading Enjoy Being about blowing up amps. Well, actually, what I did, I took my my Super Champ, and they kind of say don't drop it below 8 ohms. And one of the reasons they were actually able to sell it at a good price is they put in a power supply that's adequate for 8 ohms. But I cheated a little bit, and I dropped it to 4, and I started getting little. It sounded like almost radio signals coming in. I fried something. It still works, and sometimes I don't even get the kind of sounds. But my amp was letting me know, no, we don't like a 4 ohm load. Now for about $35, I could get a new output transformer that would allow me to drop it. And of course, and that's another kind of upgrade. And that's one of the things I want to do to my amp ultimately, is put in a Fender Princeton power supply which can handle a 4 ohm load, and then I could just plug in, and because it really, with that 10-inch speaker and then the 12-inch English speaker, what an incredible sound it makes. Oh, thank you. Enjoy being. It's interesting. One of the things I'll be adding in Mystic Muses is different YouTube channels, and as well as a few websites to go to, but mainly Weber and then YouTube channels. And it was Anderton's Music. They're out of the UK, and what they were doing was what was his favorite amp for playing in his office, and of course for playing it kind of applies to bedroom and other things. Yeah, that's the whole thing was, there's a lot of guitar players who want to get a really good tone but don't want to drive their family and their neighbors crazy. So there's a few things on there, but there was this Anderton's one that was relatively recent, trying out different amps, and the whole thing is what we call bedroom volume. I get great now. My Super Champ is great, but one of the things, I also got a great pedal, but that's not going to be in tonight's show. Okay, cool, Pyramid. Because there's playing outdoors, and there's playing at gigs, and then there's domestic playing, and yeah, that can be very, very tricky. I've had some issues. I think it might be with my video settings. I think because I don't have any automatic things going on there. But thank you for telling me, Jet Pet. I can just drop my voice a little bit. So, once again, tonight's I'm going to get off there and talk a little bit about kind of going forward with this channel. And yes, this is still live lost. And I'm not sure. I'm going to get into my camera here. But I wanted to get this Weber sale video out, because if you've ever wanted to try a hemp cone speaker, 10% off is a good savings. And until you try a hemp cone speaker, and the other thing is, whenever I got my Weber speakers, I had like a little MP3 player that I would just put on endless loop. And I would plug that into my amp and play that speaker for about 24 hours. First at like you call it bedroom volume, and then I would have a couple of hours like during the middle of the day when nobody would mind, and turn it up to like you may not want to be in the room with it, but if you're out of the room, it's no big deal. It's like a TV playing or something. And because breaking in your speaker, when you first put that speaker in, and you play, you might go, I'm not sure I like it compared to my old speaker. Well, your old speaker's already broken in. I always make sure I broke in my speakers for, kind of at least 16 hours of music exposure before I put them in, and then they sound like they're, pretty much to what they're supposed to sound like. Because it's kind of hard to evaluate a speaker before it sounds like what it's going to sound like. And they don't sound like what they're going to sound like brand new. They are giving you hints at what they'll sound like. But since, you know, most guitar players are looking and they're very discriminating in their tone, the tone that you're looking for doesn't develop until those fibers have been kind of flexed in a little bit. They're, you know, a little stiff. And you don't want the sound of a stiff speaker. And paper is the same way. You have to, you know, it's not like that you have to just break in. You have to break in all speakers if you want to hear them correctly. And I've seen speaker tests that have been done on YouTube videos, and they get the speaker, they put it in the amp, and then they test it. That's not a test. That's no way for me, in my opinion. If you're trying to show people how a speaker sounds, you don't show them how it sounds when it first comes out of the box, because that's not how it will sound. Thank you, Pyramid. So, with regard to the ModWiz 125 channel, and I just call it the ModWiz channel. Actually, I wanted to call it the ModWiz channel, but apparently somewhere they said it was taken, so I had to add some numbers. So I added some numbers that added up to 8. Largely, I mean, I've done a few Mystic Muses, but generally what this channel has been is Monday night live streams called Can't You Hear Me Gnostic. And it's kind of it's certainly metaphysical in its approach and its discussions, and Gnostic, I call it sitting in a Gnostic seat as we look at the metaphysics we all look at, or even the questions about our reality that we look at. And then we have conversations around that. So that will stay on Monday nights, and that will, you know, always be Can't You Hear Me Gnostic. But I want to do Mystic Muses, and I'm thinking about doing them on Saturday nights. I think that might be a good time, and not necessarily too early either, because Saturday nights are usually people have set aside to stay up late. So why shouldn't I take advantage of that in case they're not out? And I want to make Mystic Muse all about the mystic, you know, about the muses and making music. And so making music is about songwriting. It's about maybe some, you know, music theory, melody concepts, and what else, you know, and gear, and so it could be about guitars. You'll have, and a lot of times, especially when I'm, you know, going to talk about theory and songwriting, I have a guitar in my lap, so, you know, I'm playing. I won't be necessarily playing songs, but then as songs develop, I will also occasionally, in the middle of a Mystic Muse stream, play one of my new songs. So I'm thinking about doing that on Saturday nights. Matter of fact, I probably will do that, just so it's not a might. That's what I'll be doing. There were 2 other things. Oh yes, another stream I did, and I think is important for us all, especially if you're on YouTube, is what we'll call the alternate chronology or the false chronology, and that would be a weekly live stream, not sure what night yet, where it's about talking about all the speaking about the anomalies of history, the work of Anatoly Fomenko, and you know, he lays in the background. It's kind of like what New Earth is doing, but a discussion, because she doesn't do live streams. There's a Russian gentleman named Philip Druzhinin, who covers this material, and it's starting to become a conversation had on more and more channels, and I would like to have that conversation on the ModWiz channel about the alternative and or false chronology, and then, you know, listing videos of the thing that we can watch. There's all kinds of things, both prehistory and what they call prehistory and what they call historical. Who decided to call what history and what prehistory? I mean, it's really looking at the conversations that we live in. And let me tell you, we live in a conversation. And it's kind of like trying to bust that false paradigm by looking at clues and playing detectives together. And just, and by sharing information with each other, sharing the finds, sharing the, like people are applying their minds to this. And like for myself, as I ponder this stuff, I allow my imagination, not fantasy, but my imagination to give me things to consider, and then try to do a little like shamanic viewing of these things, and then knowing the difference between let's play with this. This isn't like doing channeling and here we go. It's about asking questions and then doing some what ifing. We're going to engage in a little sophistry with this topic because it's probably the most responsible way to approach it. When it comes to my Gnostic stuff, it's more philosophy. But when it comes to this, it'll be more sophistry, where we can be playful, where we want to kind of kick out different ideas or different things that come to us, like while we're thinking about it, and all of a sudden this really wild idea occurred to me. Well, please share. That kind of thing. Because we image ourselves in the present and going into the future from what we know ourselves as. And history has misrepresented the human species. And it's done it for a reason. And the reasons behind that misrepresentation certainly falls into a certain amount of conspiracy. But conspiracy in many ways is the right word, because the people who have set an agenda that misleads are trying to do it in a way they're not seen, so that means they are conspiring. So it is a conspiracy. The academics, or the penguins, or the quackademics, as Sylvia likes to call them, when like looking at some of the really lame things they say, and it is really, there's gaslighting. There is historical gaslighting occurring in our history. And to be gaslit is what a psychopath does to somebody that they're trying to get in their head and have them form an opinion of themselves that isn't real. So the history that we know, the history we taught, is largely one huge gaslighting event. And I would like to dedicate a series, live streams, for us to pick that apart, with me going out and each because I'll do it once a week, and then finding what has come up that week and what I thought is interesting, because sometimes people put some stuff out and it's a piece of information, but overall it might be a lot of video for just a little piece. Some of the suppositions, in case the word supposition is new for some people, that's when you say suppose this is happening. So that's a supposition. To say something is in fact something is an assertion. And so we're going to be doing quite a bit of supposition, but again, to me, suppositions can be rated. And but sometimes I might find somebody who has a supposition I don't agree with and bring it anyway to see what we think of that supposition. Because this is about us. This is about the anthropos, the human species, the human animal on a planet created for us, and us put on it, with a world created by others, and that we are currently, you could say imprisoned, but the bars are largely in our minds, not completely. And because the reason I say largely, well, what about this? This isn't. You're right. That's why I said largely. And then the fourth thing I do, and maybe that would be more of every other week, I want to discuss herbs and essential oils. I am a certified international aromatherapist from the Pacific Institute of Aromatherapy since, I guess, 1996. And so I would like to discuss what these essential oils can do, but also getting into the chemistry, because a big part of really understanding these things is understanding what's inside them and why they do what they do. I watched a very informative video about a week ago about the various terpenes, which are a form of plant chemicals, in hemp and cannabis, in the cannabis species of plants. And the interesting thing is, as he was bringing up not just the pinenes themselves, but the individual names of them, I recognized most of the names he was using from my aromatherapy knowledge of plant chemistry. And knowing plant chemistry is sometimes will inform you why you would use an essential oil. It's one thing to know that this one kills pain, this one relaxes muscles. Sometimes they do both. But knowing which of the terpenes are in there sometimes can help you fine-tune it. And there's more than terpenes in essential oils. But there would be a way of kind of learning of a powerful modality. And because if I'm going to be doing it, I have a friend of mine who is a Young Living. I could be in her line, and the reason I might choose to work with Young Living oils is because they can be counted on for the quality. I can get Young Living quality from other vendors, but it can't. First of all, they're not always available, and then of course, if I try to use other vendors, there's just Young Living guarantees that you are getting exactly the essential oil that you should be getting. When you go out into the other open market, sometimes certain, and even ones who've earned themselves a good name, if they have trouble sourcing a really high quality, but they can't afford not to be without it, they'll quietly put it in there, and you could have a grade that won't perform the way it should perform because it is not distilled properly. Proper sourcing and proper distillation methods are important to essential oils. Higher temperatures give greater essential oil yields, but the higher temperatures destroy some of the some of the chemical constituents are more heat sensitive than others. And very often it's the more supportive ones, not the main ones, the more supportive ones that are the more delicate ones. So sometimes for a greater yield, they'll up the temperature, and so it'll basically seem like it's the same oil, because the things that give it its odoriferous or its olfactory characteristics will be present, because those are the main ones and those are the hardy ones. But it's the entourage, the ones who kind of, the little message senders, the ones that, like let's say in a big business, the ones who are working behind the office, but the front office wouldn't work very well without that back office. And so high quality essential oils kind of give us ensure that we get the back office people too. So largely the ModWiz channel would be Can't You Hear Me Gnostic, Mystic Muse. I haven't quite got a name yet for the chronology one, and then herbs and essential oils. So I'm going to look in the chat and see what people think about that as a concept moving forward, and I will have a little bit more to say, but first I want to get into the conversation here, or the dialogue. Hey, Madfinger. So I'm going to scroll back a little bit. I have what you're hearing is a play. I have a little tape going on of rain. It soothes me. Oh, thank you, Lost Star Sailor. Did I boo. Okay, I'm back. So for some reason my signal just went down, so I got back. So Lost Star Sailor. My picture is my picture again. Thank you for bringing it up. iWalk isn't here, but that's the other thing I want to be doing with my Mystic Muse is doing shout outs to the other musicians into this community. iWalk is definitely one of them. He's been putting out some really good music, and so when people put out songs, I want to put links to it. I mean, I want Mystic Muse to be more than just me talking about gear or speakers or songwriting. I want it to be interactive, so that if I put out a song, if iWalk puts out a song, if anybody puts out a song, that when we gather here, everybody's aware that that's gone on, and we can really acknowledge each other doing that. So iWalk has been doing some really good, putting out some good music lately, and during this week I'm going to put out my acoustic version of "Go to Your Room," the Goob song. Thank you all for staying tuned in, and I really want to make Mystic Muse a kind of a really lively discussion, and arts, and show and tell, that kind of thing. So I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything in a live chat. Okay, so now I'm going to just say a few things about my personal life, just very focused. I've been sharing. I've been a roommate. I've had been living in a house, have my own room, and so that means sharing rent. And since there were 3 people here, I was paying 1/3 of the rent. And they have found a new home. They're a married couple. They want to have their privacy. I totally understand it. But so I will be keeping the house, but my rent will no longer be 1/3 of the rent. It'll be all of the rent. And so one of the reasons I'm trying to come up with I've come up with a schedule which I just presented to you with the 3 basic live streams, and I think maybe a couple of times a month about essential oils and herbs with focus. It's not going to be just like, in other words, I'll pick an herb or an essential oil and get a real focus on it. And I'll do that live stream too, so that way I can answer questions in real time. And I'm playing with the idea of Patreon, but one of the reasons I don't necessarily want to do Patreon is because they take quite a bit. In other words, they become your business partner. PayPal isn't so much like a business partner. PayPal takes like under 4%. Like, so if somebody sends me send me $50, it's, or let's say we'll take $100, I would get $96 of that. Now, of course, I'm just using large numbers because they're easy to work with. These are not subliminal messages. I don't know what Patreon take. I think I heard they take 40 or 30%, perhaps. That's like having a partner. And so I don't know what experience people have had with PayPal. I've used PayPal over the years. Not only are they a light touch to your transactions, they're very dependable and relative and pretty darn quick. And as long as you're running a clean show and you're not doing a bunch of dumb stuff and a lot of controversial things, and alternative chronology is not particularly controversial because it's too woo-woo, it's too rarefied, and it's not attacking any political parties. So I find PayPal, was if I were to do kind of a subscription for doing things rather than Patreon, it would allow whatever you wanted to send my direction to basically get there in one piece. And PayPal really is easy to use. It really is trusted, and it's very easy to hook it into your bank account and take money from PayPal and put it in there, or vice versa. It is really, really an easy interface. of all the archontic money things on the web, PayPal to me has proved itself. Elon Musk started PayPal, if I recall correctly. And I've read a lot of things about Elon Musk. I'm not sure what to make of the man. And I've seen pictures of him. Looks like maybe he's had a little surgery. Not sure. Maybe this is what he looks like. But recently, I guess I saw him speak live, and it was the only time I ever saw him speak live, and I went, gee, this guy doesn't seem too creepy. I was really surprised. Thank you for your feedback, Mari. And then the other thing is, one of the things that I don't like about Patreon is it creates two tiers of audience. I don't really like that so much. I like, since we're a community, to me, it's almost like, let's call it the equivalent of a money potluck, where, I mean, I'm going to be asking for like really humble monthly subscription things, like maybe a baseline of $2, and then like another line that would allow for some offline things with my Zoom that would allow us real community interaction. And that would be like, I'm thinking of like a $5 a month for that one. And then there would be now with regards to but this is for, the $2 a month is actually covering me for getting real professional about covering my content, so that when I do a Mystic Muse, I have all my amps mic'd up, that I have everything set up, and it's done like it could be done right. And the other thing is, starting on the 1st, when my roommates move out, I'm going to get rid of the TV signal, and I want to take my humble 3 megabyte rate that I have and double it to 6. That's going to cost me more, and that's one of the reasons why I have, besides my tripling of my rent, to kind of have the internet that would allow me to do all of this and not have any cutouts and bad video settings would be remedied by me upping it. But it doesn't quite double the price to double your speed, but it's amazing how doubling the speed ups the price. So that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to create some kind of revenue stream from this channel. I will, and there were just things I won't do, like, in other words, monetize. You know, when you monetize and I guess you put commercials. I don't want commercials. I don't want anything. See, this is the thing, is I'm trying to build a new paradigm. I hope we're all trying to do a new paradigm. And so that means that when we don't just accept what it is, that if we want a new paradigm, we have to create it. It's not going to come by ascension. It'll come by our own personal ascension into a new paradigm, and then living, walking our talk. So I would never monetize as far as commercials, ads. Never, ever, ever do that. That's crap. I think that whole, that's just all part of that horrible world, that ugly kind of advertising. It's not that advertising couldn't be good, but they generally don't do it good, and a lot of the advertising is by products I don't think people should be buying to begin with. So for me, the only way to kind of create a revenue stream that I actually require, or else I'm going to have to do some pretty major lifestyle changes. So the whole thing was, okay, I'd like to have subscriptions. So the thing is, what is your value? And that's what I laid out earlier on. The 4 categories of topics: the Can't You Hear Me Gnostic, the alternative or false chronology, Mystic Muse, and essential oils and herbs. And each one will be its own distinct thing, and I'm quite sure each one will have a little. Certainly there'll be a common audience, people who just enjoy me and what I do and are interested in what I have to say. And then I would like to think that with like a Mystic Muse, overall the people that are watching it live might be a little bit different. There might be extras, people who only want to come from Mystic Muse, people who only want to come for the herbs, and people who are only interested in the alternative chronology. Can't You Hear Me Gnostic is already well established on Monday nights. It's been going on for months now. There's a fairly steady crowd for that, and I'm happy. And this isn't about trying to grow my subscription base, because I'm almost at 1,100 people. That's enough people with contributions, and of course a lot of the subscribers are no longer here. But maybe if I start broadening the categories that they could partake in, that things can happen. And I'll only find out if I experiment with it. Thank you, Jet Pet. Yeah, the exchange rates are kind of the exchange rate. I mean, it's the gangsters. It's the world. That's why the world sucks on a beautiful planet. So anyway, I was going to keep this, I doesn't have to, I have plenty of juice still in me. I'm starting to wind down a little bit from rehearsal. I did record some stuff at rehearsal tonight, but I had no chance to play it back yet, so I have no idea if it's a pile of mush or, or you only hear the drums or only hear the bass. But I did it so I could at least listen back to it, and if I made any mistakes, know how to correct them. And that's what there's, and then of course I not even told the boys that. I said, to be an engineer and a bass player at the same time, it's a little distracting. I'm a person who thinks that multitasking is how you do more than one thing at a time poorly. I know there are lots of people, I multitask well. Okay, I'll take your word for it. I don't. If driving and talking on the phone is any example of people multitasking well, I don't see evidence of it. And then, talking on the phone and driving is kind of like, playing a bass and then making sure, and and then also I haven't used the software in a while. Oh, that's the other thing. I wanted with the Mystic Muse is what kind of recording software we're using, what kind of tricks we're doing. Miking techniques, recording techniques, and the fact that the DAW that I use, I keep on forgetting what DAW means now. Digital audio something. But my recording software, kind of like Pro Tools is a recording software. Well, the recording software I use is Reaper. Reaper is a it's an open source type thing. I guess it comes from some of the people who broke off from Mozilla formed Reaper. What I like about Reaper is they give you a 2-month trial period. So you can use it for 2 months for free. After the trial period expires, they don't disable how you can use it. They just, every time you open it, they remind you that, your free trial's over. It'd be really nice for you to pay the $60 for the license. I was very happy. A couple of years ago, I paid $60 for my license, and it also was good for a whole huge bunch of upgrades. I still haven't gone into the next category of upgrades where I might have to get a new license. And even then, many of the upgrades that they provide are not always the ones that you have to have. You could actually say, okay, I now have this paid for, and I'm not going to get any more upgrades, and you still have your piece of software. So again, it's free recording software, very robust. It's not harsh on your CPU. Excellent in every way, and there's plenty of there are whole YouTube channels dedicated to Reaper, and I would list that. So chances are with Mystic Muse you're gonna have all kinds of links to click on, YouTube channels, and of course always Weber speakers. In many ways, whether or not Weber will ever sponsor me, and even if that's just they gave me a break if I bought a speaker, I'm going to be promoting Weber speakers. It's also part of the new paradigm. I believe in them, and if I'll pay it forward, and if it doesn't come back, that's also okay. I was doing it from my heart, and that's the reason. That's how I do things. I do things from my heart. I do things that I think have integrity. So so that's what I really hope to make this channel a one that buzzes and has purpose. And you know, picking the themes, the 4 themes, you know, three weekly themes. I'm thinking the herbs and essential oil will be, you know, twice a month, and trying to develop a nice interactive online community discussing things that are interesting and rewarding to us. And so now everybody's not into the Gnostic and metaphysical thing, but a lot of people enjoy music, whether they're musicians or not. And the false chronology has certainly garnered some interest, and even those who haven't heard about it, the thing is to start talking about it and putting some videos that people might not have watched and go like, oh, gee, because here's the thing, the moment you kind of enter into that discussion, your genetic memory starts to stir. Your DNA stirs, because your DNA knows that you're being bullshitted. Yeah, oils for chakras too. I mean, the beautiful thing about the Pacific Institute of Aromatherapy and Kurt Schnaubelt, who's kind of like the genius behind it. It was. I mean, I can discuss some of the cosmetological aspects of it, because it was 6 parts. I think one was history, toxicology, cosmetology, clinical applications. I don't know. There were 6 different categories that the overall course did, and I had to take a test. And it was really comprehensive. And what I like about Kurt, what I like about anybody, like the person who taught me medical massage, Kurt is as much a Western chemist as he is a kind of, let's call it, an alchemist. His chemistry is his metaphysics is as strong as his chemistry, and that's really where we are. It's not just the woo or just this. We can do it. You know, we use 2 feet to walk forward, so I think we can use both sides of our brain to think all this stuff out, and that's how I do things. And I feel most skilled people do work with their whole brain. It's never just right. Oh, I'm right brain dominant. No, I mean, it's just like, it's like an engine. You know, it's like thinking of a V8. Oh, the right side sometimes works more than the left side. Doesn't sound like a very good engine. To have a good engine running, you want both sides pumping together. Yeah, well, you know, you and I, Dwayne, we can certainly discuss that. I mean, there are other things. I mean, there is always the U.S. mail too, or any kind of mail. There's all workarounds. So that's kind of what I'm doing tonight. Was about, you know, Weber Speakers is having a hemp cone sale, 10% off. The link is in the description below. And this, by the way, this show tonight was not particularly exemplary of the shows in the future. The shows in the future will have a theme. I mean, there was a theme tonight talking about Weber and other things. But, you know, but there will, a lot of times it'll cover a few things. We might, you know, part of it might open with some gear talk, then going into some songwriting, into some kind of theory. I might discuss the modes a little bit and how useful they are, but also in many ways, I have kind of like my own way of, by using theory, of kind of in a certain way using modes without necessarily having to remember the whole mode, and that has to do with melody composition, and so that falls into songwriting, because really the melody of a song is the heart of a song. And then the chording, or what supports the melody, is, you know, that's what kind of carries the melody, and how they interplay with each other, and how sometimes if you just have chords but not necessarily a melody, how you might be able to find a melody from the chords by knowing enough theory to start playing with at least one of 3 main notes you might want to start your melody on. And then how it moves linearly, because a lot of melodies will move in a linear type of fashion, occasionally jumping for, and that in a non-linear fashion, and that can kind of be dramatic. And well, I just saw music, oils, and color therapy all in one topic wouldn't necessarily. That would be a little bit mushy. I'm gonna, I want to keep the themes, because they bleed in, because it's all kind of one. They could bleed into each other, but I want these to be themed, so this way here I can do the research before the shows. That's the other thing is, to do shows like this and to be asking for subscriptions. I have, the moment that begins, my real professional comes out, and so therefore, the professional and integrity are one and the same things with me. So then that means, okay, now I have a job. For me, having a job is is an opportunity to be great. That's what or have, when you have a trade or anything, you're showing up to work. Doesn't have to be a job. Showing up to work is anybody's opportunity to be great. And whether you are great is one thing or another. That's, you can decide afterward. But you go for it. You go for the gusto. You go for the goods. And going for the goods means a little rehearsal, and in the case of presenting material, sometimes what that rehearsal is research. So for me to do these shows at the level that I'd like to do, so that because now we're doing trade. You're giving me something, and I have to give you something in return, that you feel that this was a good trade. And so my job is to make sure that in that trade, not only are you happy, that you almost feel like you're getting away with it, and that would make me more than happy. Where it's just like, dude, man, it's like, and then I actually like to be in a situation where some people go, you should raise your prices, and I don't like those words. Like, in other words, we could give you a little bit more in the trade than you're giving us, but the thing is to start out where it is, and then to see if I can meet that, and I should be able to meet it, but my point is to exceed that trade, where you've shown me kindness, and then I'm just going to give you the mush. I'm going to be all mushy about you. Yes, the bedroom that my roommates are in will become my massage room, and the living room will probably become a performance room. And that's the other thing I haven't even mentioned, is I wanted to do performance videos of my songs. And what I mean by a performance video is where I record all of my backup. Let's say I'm going to play guitar. I would have, a drum machine or something. I happen to have not Superior Drummer, Easy Drummer 2, which is a very good drum program. So in other words, I would have when I performed live, I would have some amount of backup that's pre-recorded, but my voice and whatever instrument I'm playing at that moment is the live instrument, with the other ones being pre-recorded. And then doing that, standing up, and it's a performance, not sitting down doing a song, performing, getting my songs to like a certain level and doing those in a performance video. And I thought that the performance videos would be a real nice plus. But only as they become available. But the thing is, okay, now that I'm in this, I want to delight, and I already have my backdrop, and so my living room would make a nice place, and it's broad enough, and I could set up a table on the other side of the room to set up my camera, and so really give a little bit of a sense of distance, and rock it out a little bit. I think that would be fun. And maybe even occasionally put on my bass. I have a bass pedal that has its own rhythm, and sometimes I could just plug that in live and set the rhythm and just jam a little bit, even occasionally. So that's one of the reasons I have to double my internet speed, so that it can handle what I'm going to be throwing at it, and I intend to be throwing content in this case, and hopefully you will be quite content with the content. Okay, thanks for dropping by, Lost Star Sailor, and say hello to I Walk. It's late. Right now in the UK, we're coming, I guess, like on 5 o'clock in the morning, so although I sent him a link, I'm quite sure he was in bed. and some of my like the herbs and essential oil videos, I'm going to try and keep, you know, a little bit shorter. And in some cases, it depends on how they go. I mean, some things I might occasionally just make a canned video and put them up, if I want to just kind of like get some information out, and then also by putting out what, you know, I'm calling, you know, pre-recorded video. And sometimes those pre-recorded videos could be for, you know, for people who just want, like, you know, 20 minutes to a half an hour to get some information, and then have a live stream that would, you know, that would release it before the live stream, so that's that information out. It's almost like having read a chapter in the book and then coming together live and discussing the chapter. So I hope these sound like exciting, you know, exciting and inspiring activities for us to do for our online community. Now, I don't know. I know it's a Friday night, and I don't know if there's other live streams going on, because I see it's a humble crowd tonight with just the, you know, the people that are here. I guess I'll find out when I get offline. So I haven't eaten yet today, and we're coming on midnight. Well, I did have some cookies and coffee, my normal wake up, and so that's that. And also the other thing with me getting greater, more robust video connection, internet connection, I mean, is there are a few people I would like to talk to, in, let's say, a mystic view, yet another one, which would be having guests on. I would love to talk to Gordon White. I would love to talk to Thomas Sheridan. When John Lamb Lash is a little less busy, I want to get him on. Although he might be a little less open to a live stream, because he's not a live stream type of person. But Gordon on a live stream, Gordon White would love that. Thomas Sheridan would love that. There's a few other people, and and then I could have them on my Zoom call, and then put my Zoom call into the live streaming. I tried that once, and I couldn't even get the live streaming to start. Never mind. It was just, it choked. My 3 megabytes said, just threw up on me. So, if you don't, please, and for those who weren't at the live stream, please leave some comments in the comments section about some of these ideas. And they don't have to be, if any, I'm always interested in, even if some people go, I don't like this or that. I like to know what those things are, because I'll listen. I will hear anything anybody has to say. I mean, I'll make my own decision in the long run, but I want to know what's going on, what kind of thought processes were elicited by this message. So if anybody has anything to say or any final questions for me, this would be the time to do it. And because if not, I will then say goodnight. I also think a better internet connection will probably fix whatever's going on with the mic, because there is, I've checked everything, I have no auto anything on, so it shouldn't auto spike. It really shouldn't do that. And I've heard it, I play back my videos, I've heard it do that. I know what it sounds like, and it's not, I don't like it. Thank you, Matt Finger. Well, I need to bring, I need to, if I'm going to try and stay at home, like work at home instead of go out and do things. And that's why I'm glad to have my bedroom open up. If I get, 2 2 handfuls of clients a month that will give me actually the extra rent that I need to come up with. Fortunately, I've reached out to some friends for this month, for August 1st, and it looks like I have friends who will pull it together to get me the extra hundreds of dollars that I need to pay the rent, because I certainly don't want to start my first month here being late. And if I'm late, it's almost like, well, if you're late, it's just I want to do things the way I'm comfortable with. I like having bills pending. Doesn't allow me to sleep very well. That causes psychic pain for me. And psychic pain needs to be treated, and I can't afford to treat any psychic pain. Because psychic pain is largely situational, although sometimes those situations are emotional, but usually even that is situational. And I know, having been an alcoholic and now 8 years sober, I know the things that created the psychic pain that made drinking almost necessary, and that how staying sober was the elimination of certain things that created psychic pain. And it's been a very successful formula. Okay, well, it looks that we have a show here. Mystic Muse. Don't forget Weber speakers at tedweber.com. The link is in the description below. 10% off on their hemp cone speakers. Go check it out, and if you're saying, I'm not sure if I want a Weber speaker, check out their other speakers. They are the best speakers, and they are customizable. Including, in many cases, 5 different basket color choices. Sometimes there's less, sometimes there aren't. I mean, each speaker has its own options, but there's always options with everything except their signature speakers. And signature speakers are their smallest magnets, their smallest voice coils. But it's a great company, and if you currently have an amp with a speaker in it, and you've never really thought about changing a speaker, or maybe you have and you're just looking for really the best reproduction, and that's a little bit tricky, only because you can hide in a little bit of mush. Sometimes the clearest reproduction isn't always desirable. What I liked about Weber speakers, besides them sounding so good, is it enabled me to hear little things either in my fingering or my picking or something that weren't as pretty as I thought they were, that needed a little cleaning up. But on the other speakers, I really couldn't hear it. Weber is so real. It does such a great job of putting out what you're playing, that even the things that you might not want to have in there show up. So Weber is a great way is like almost like a clinic on your playing. Yes. Some nice wisdom here from Enjoy Being a Raksha Moose at the close of the show. And that's why this is Mystic Muse, because although we're going to be all musical and talking gear and getting geeky and hardware and everything else, we're still going to stay mystical. And with that, I will say goodnight. Thank you all for showing up at a quick notice for this Mystic Muse. And I look forward to engaging with you a lot more in the weeks to come. More to come from me about expanding the site and what kind of subscription base I'll do. That's the next thing. But this is like getting the idea out, and then I'll kind of refine it and really make a video just about that. All right? So good night, everybody. I love you, and take care of yourselves. Oh. I'm sitting here staring